Okay, so you're diving headfirst into the world of coding interviews. That's awesome. And a little
Yeah.
nerve-wracking, right?
Yeah, it
You're
is.
not alone.
It's tough.
This guide you shared is fantastic. It dives deep into not just like what to study, but how to study effectively.
Right.
And crucially, how to avoid turning into a burnt out zombie
Yeah.
before your big interview day.
It's so easy to do.
Oh, it
You've
is.
got to approach interview prep strategically.
Yeah,
It's like training for a mental marathon, not a sprint.
I love that analogy. So many people think they can just cram algorithms and data structures for a week straight and ace it.
Yeah,
But this guide suggests something different.
totally. It really does.
Like what?
Well, it emphasizes that burnout in this context isn't just about being like tired.
Oh, really?
It can be
Yeah.
like dread
Interesting.
at the thought of opening your laptop
I see.
or an inability to focus even on a simple problem.
Yeah.
Have you experienced any of that?
Definitely. And this guide really opened my eyes to the more subtle signs.
Yeah.
It made me realize that recognizing those signs is the first step to tackling them.
For sure. And one of the most powerful tools at your disposal is a structured study plan.
Okay, so not just winging it and hoping for the best.
Not if you want to maximize your chances.
Right.
Imagine training for a marathon with no plan, just running until you collapse.
Yeah, no thanks.
A study plan is your roadmap.
Okay.
This guide suggests breaking down your prep into smaller, more manageable chunks.
Mhm.
Instead of learn everything about coding,
Right.
you can set daily or weekly goals.
I see.
One day you tackle data structures, the next it's algorithms, and so on.
That makes so much sense. I'm already feeling calmer just thinking about it.
Yeah, it's about working with your brain, not against it.
Makes sense.
This guide also delves into the importance of incorporating different learning styles.
Oh, tell me more about that.
Well, just like we wouldn't train for a marathon by only running on a treadmill, we shouldn't prep for coding interviews by only reading textbooks.
So true. What else is there?
This guide highlights the importance of variety.
Okay.
Think interactive coding challenges.
Mm-hmm.
Online platforms like Algocademy, have you heard of it?
Algo Academy, yes. They're like the Duolingo for coding interviews. It seems super engaging.
And that's precisely the point.
Okay.
Engaging with the material in different ways helps solidify the concepts in your mind
Yeah.
and prevents those dreaded plateaus.
We hate plateaus.
Plateaus are no good.
So it's not just about putting in the hours, it's about using those hours strategically?
Exactly.
Okay.
And a big part of that is recognizing that our brains have limits.
Right.
We need to build in breaks to recharge and process information.
This guide actually suggests a specific technique for that.
What's that?
The Pomodoro technique. Have you ever used that?
I have. It's surprisingly effective.
I've heard of IF, but I've never tried it.
You work on a task for 25 minutes, then take a 5-minute break.
Okay.
Those short breaks act as mini rewards,
Right.
making the process feel less daunting.
It's so easy to get caught up in the grind culture mentality and think that breaks are for the weak.
Right. But the truth is, our brains just aren't wired to function optimally for hours on end without a break.
Right.
And when you try to push through,
Uh-huh.
that's when burnout sets in.
Yeah, that makes sense.
This guide stresses the importance of listening to your body's signals.
So how do you know when it's time for a break? What signals should we be looking for?
Well, it can vary from person to person,
Yeah.
but some common signs are
Yeah.
difficulty concentrating,
Right.
increased frustration with the material,
Okay.
or even just feeling mentally drained.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I know I've definitely hit that wall a few times while prepping.
For sure.
So taking breaks is crucial.
Yeah,
But this guide also talks about the importance of what you do during those breaks.
that's a great point.
Right.
What should we be doing?
Well, they emphasize the importance of actively disconnecting from work and engaging in activities that help you relax and recharge.
So important.
Right.
Like what?
So step away from the computer,
Okay.
put down the phone, and go for a walk, read a book, or spend time with loved ones. Anything that helps you unwind and de-stress.
I love that.
Right.
And while we're on the topic of well-being,
Yeah.
this guide also dives into the often overlooked connection between our physical and mental states.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It emphasizes that taking care of your physical health is just as important as mastering those technical skills.
That makes a lot of sense. You can't expect your brain to be firing on all cylinders if your body is running on fumes.
Precisely.
So what kind of specific advice does this guide give on the physical health front?
It covers all the basics: prioritizing sleep,
Okay.
staying hydrated,
Uh-huh.
nourishing your body with healthy foods,
Right.
and incorporating regular physical activity into your routine.
It sounds like common sense,
Yeah.
but I think it's easy to let those things slide,
Totally.
especially when you're feeling stressed and pressed for time.
It's true. We tend to think we could just power through and sacrifice our health for the sake of productivity.
Yeah,
But this guide argues that's actually counterproductive in the long run.
because when you neglect your physical health,
Yeah.
it's only a matter of time before your mental stamina starts to suffer as well.
Right.
And that's when burnout can really take hold.
Exactly. And it's not just about preventing burnout either.
Right.
Taking care of your physical health can actually improve your cognitive function,
Interesting.
which means you'll be able to learn and retain information more effectively.
So it's a win-win situation.
Exactly.
By prioritizing our physical health, we're not only setting ourselves up for a more sustainable and enjoyable prep experience,
Yeah.
but we're also giving ourselves a mental edge.
Precisely. And when you combine that with a structured study plan,
Okay.
a variety of learning methods,
Uh-huh.
and those all-important breaks, you're well on your way to conquering those coding interviews with confidence.
I love it. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here,
We have.
but there's still so much more to unpack in this guide.
There is.
Let's dive into the next section,
Okay.
where they talk about some powerful techniques for actually retaining all this information.
Sounds good to me. This next section is all about memory.
Oh, yeah.
Specifically, like how to remember all this technical information you're cramming into your brain.
Yeah, because let's face it, we've all had that experience of cramming for an exam only to forget everything the moment we step out of the testing room.
Exactly. And that's where spaced repetition comes in.
Okay.
This guide dives deep into how this technique can be a game changer for coding interview prep.
Okay, so spaced repetition.
Yeah.
Break that down for me like I'm a total newbie.
Okay, imagine you're learning a new language.
Okay.
You wouldn't try to memorize an entire dictionary in one sitting, right?
Definitely not.
Spaced repetition is similar.
Okay.
It involves reviewing information at increasing intervals,
Okay.
just before you're about to forget it.
Right.
This reinforces the neural pathways associated with that information,
Wow.
making it more likely to stick in your long-term memory.
So instead of just rereading my notes over and over again,
Yeah,
I should be testing myself at specific intervals.
precisely.
Interesting.
And the beauty of it is that it forces you to focus on the areas where you're struggling the most.
Right.
It's like your brain's personal trainer,
I like it.
constantly adapting to your weaknesses.
I love that. This guide also mentioned a tool called Anki.
Yes.
Something about digital flashcards.
Anki is a fantastic tool for implementing spaced repetition.
Cool.
It uses an algorithm to schedule your reviews at optimal intervals,
Interesting.
making the process even more effective.
That sounds like a game changer.
It is.
So we're learning smarter, not harder.
Exactly.
This guide also talked about the importance of community and support,
Yes.
especially in a field that can often feel isolating.
Absolutely. We often put so much pressure on ourselves to figure everything out on our own.
Yeah.
But this guide reminds us that we don't have to.
I've definitely been there, those late night coding sessions where you're ready to tear your hair out because you can't find that one pesky bug.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So frustrating. And having a supportive community to share those struggles with can make all the difference.
It's like having a team of cheerleaders rooting for you every step of the way.
I love that.
But also a group of fellow marathon runners who understand exactly what you're going through.
I like that analogy.
Right.
And this guide provides some great tips on how to build that support system.
Oh, like what?
Joining online forums,
Uh-huh.
study groups,
Right.
finding a mentor,
Uh-huh.
even just connecting with friends or family members who are also in tech.
It's about creating a network of people who understand the unique challenges of coding interviews and can offer encouragement and support when you need it most.
Exactly, because when you feel supported,
Yeah.
you're more likely to stay motivated, persevere through challenges,
Yeah.
and ultimately achieve your goals.
It's all connected.
Yes.
And speaking of connections,
Yeah.
this guide also highlighted the importance of shifting our focus from rote memorization to problem solving.
Ah, yes. It's not enough to just memorize algorithms and data structures.
Right.
You need to be able to apply them creatively to solve new and unfamiliar problems.
It's like having a toolbox full of tools but not knowing how to use them.
Exactly.
Right.
Or maybe like having a recipe but not understanding the science behind why it works.
Okay.
You might be able to follow the instructions,
Right.
but you won't be able to adapt or improvise if something goes wrong.
So how do we shift our mindset from memorization to problem solving?
This guide emphasizes the importance of understanding the why behind the what.
Okay.
Don't just memorize how an algorithm works.
Okay.
Dig deeper and understand the underlying principles.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
It's not just about finding the right answer. It's about understanding the thought process behind it.
and being able to articulate that thought process clearly during an interview.
Because ultimately, that's what interviewers are looking for, right? Not just someone who can regurgitate information, but someone who can think critically and solve problems on the fly.
Exactly.
Right.
This guide encourages readers to approach each problem with a curious and inquisitive mind.
Okay.
Don't be afraid to ask questions, experiment with different approaches,
Right.
and even make mistakes along the way.
It's all part of the learning process.
Precisely. Embrace the challenge, embrace the learning process,
Yeah.
and remember that it's okay to not have all the answers right away.
Because sometimes the journey is just as important as the destination.
I couldn't agree more. Now, on that note of approaching learning as a journey,
Yeah.
this guide dives into a fascinating concept,
What's that?
metacognition.
Metacognition, that sounds intimidating.
It's actually not as complicated as it sounds.
Okay.
It's simply the process of thinking about your thinking.
So being aware of how you learn best.
Exactly. This guide encourages readers to reflect on their study habits,
Okay.
identify their strengths and weaknesses, and figure out what works best for them.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
What works for one person might not work for another.
precisely.
Right.
This guide emphasizes that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to learning.
So how do we actually put metacognition into practice? Any tips from the guide?
It suggests regularly asking yourself questions like,
Okay.
what are my strengths and weaknesses in this area?
Right.
What study techniques are working well for me?
Okay.
Where am I getting stuck? And what can I do differently?
It's about becoming a student of your own learning process.
Exactly. And the more you understand about how your brain learns best,
Yeah.
the more effective and enjoyable the entire process becomes.
That's such a great reminder. Okay, so we've talked about how to learn effectively,
Right.
how to retain information,
Mm-hmm.
and how to build a supportive community around our coding journey. It's all important.
But there's still one crucial element missing,
What's that?
the actual interview experience.
Ah, yes. The moment of truth.
Even with all the preparation in the world,
Yeah,
those pre-interview jitters can still sneak up on you,
absolutely.
right?
And that's why this guide dedicates an entire section to the importance of mock interviews.
Mock interviews like a dress rehearsal for the main event.
Exactly.
Okay.
They give you a chance to practice your skills under pressure,
Okay.
get comfortable talking about your thought process out loud,
Right.
and receive valuable feedback before the actual interview.
So how do we make these mock interviews as realistic and beneficial as possible? Any tips from the guide?
It suggests finding a friend or mentor to act as the interviewer,
Okay.
setting a timer to simulate the time pressure of a real interview,
Uh-huh.
and even practicing coding on a whiteboard or using a basic text editor to mimic the interview environment.
So recreate the interview experience as closely as possible.
Exactly.
Got it.
And don't be afraid to ask for feedback. Right?
Both on your technical skills and your communication style.
The more you can put yourself in those uncomfortable situations beforehand,
Right.
the more confident and prepared you'll feel when the real deal rolls around.
Absolutely. And that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Building confidence, not just in your technical abilities, but also in your ability to perform under pressure.
Because at the end of the day, confidence is key.
So true.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here today, from structured study plans to spaced repetition to mock interviews.
This guide really does offer a holistic approach to coding interview prep,
Right.
one that prioritizes both your technical skills and your well-being.
It's not just about getting the job, it's about approaching the entire process with a healthy and sustainable mindset. It's about approaching the process as an opportunity for growth,
Right.
both professionally and personally.
I love that. This guide really emphasizes that coding interviews are not just about what you know.
Right.
It's about how you think,
Yeah.
how you learn, and how you handle pressure.
It's like this whole process is a microcosm of what it's actually like to work in the tech industry.
Exactly. You're constantly learning new things,
Right.
solving challenging problems,
Uh-huh.
and collaborating with others.
And taking care of your well-being throughout the process.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, your well-being is your most valuable asset.
So true. Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
what are some of the key takeaways you hope listeners will walk away with?
I'd say the biggest one is you've got this. It's easy to get overwhelmed
Yeah.
by the sheer volume of information.
Right.
and the pressure to perform.
Yeah.
But remember that you're not alone in this journey.
There are resources available, communities to support you, and strategies you can implement to make the process more manageable and even enjoyable.
Exactly. And remember that this is a marathon, not a sprint.
Right.
Pace yourself, prioritize your well-being, and celebrate those small victories along the way.
I love that. So to our listener out there who's gearing up for their coding interviews, we're rooting for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Go out there and crush it. And remember,
Yeah.
the skills and strategies you develop during this process will serve you well far beyond your interviews.
They'll equip you for a successful and fulfilling career in tech.
Exactly.
This was a fantastic deep dive. Thanks for joining me.
My pleasure.
And to our listeners, thanks for tuning in to the deep dive. We'll see you next time for another deep dive into a topic that matters to you.